We picked this antique dresser up at one of our favorite thrift stores for $40. It's got a few things that need repaired, the top especially. The veneer is in pretty great shape except for a bubble right here in the middle. And I'm gonna show you how to fix that. Real quick though, before I do that, I'm just cleaning the piece. We like to keep it simple. This is just Dawn dish soap and it cuts the grease super well, rinses off easy, and gives us a nice clean piece to paint. It's all cleaned up. Now we need to address this top. It's got some gouges. Someone actually painted over a piece of Scotch tape here, and then it's got this bubbling veneer. There's a bubble here, here, and then the big one up in the middle. And it looks like someone just painted over several layers of paint. Either that or they tried to do a texture, but it just looks like it's been painted over several times. So there's a few different ways you can go about trying to get this veneer off and repair this. One of the most popular methods is just sand the whole thing down. This is an older veneer, so it's about a 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's pretty heavy duty. It's a lot of sanding. And the rest of the veneer is actually on pretty well. You could take an iron, try to steam it off, heat up the glue from the bottom and get some steam going and get that off. That works pretty well, but I've also had that take a long time, a lot like the sanding, pretty labor intensive. You can try scraping it up, same concept as the iron, heat up the glue with a heat gun and peel it off that way. Works okay, but every now and then the glue's just gonna be super stubborn and it doesn't like to come off. Or just old-fashioned chisel, and you can try that method as well. All these methods work, but we're gonna do something a little bit different. Since most of the veneer is in really good shape, we're just gonna cut this out. I'll chisel that out in a minute. We could patch this with more veneer, but I just want to show you a real simple way that works really effectively with minimal effort. That's always the goal: time, effort, and results. You can see where that old paint went through there, and it's down to the second layer of wood. This is where the chisel comes in handy, but now instead of dealing with the whole top, I'm dealing with a small section here. We're about to do my favorite repair, Bondo all-purpose putty here. It's strong, it lasts a long time. Most importantly, it saves me about an hour, hour and a half of sanding and prying and peeling on the top of this veneer. I've seen people do it magically online. I've never removed veneer that wasn't stubborn. So I just mixed up this blue cream hardener in here. It's gonna make it so it dries up in about 5 to 10 minutes. It'll be sandable in about 15 at the longest. It's a little warm in the garage right now, so it should dry up pretty quick. And then I'm just going to smear this on. It doesn't take a whole lot. Pull off the excess. I do like to leave it a little proud, so I'm gonna put some back there in the middle and just go over it light. And what that does is when I sand it, that ensures I don't have a divot in that portion there. Anytime you're sanding, it's a good idea to wear a respirator, especially with a chemical like this Bondo, and you want to make sure that you're also applying it and using it in a well-ventilated area.
I don't want to build a ton of texture, I just want to build a little bit of texture, so I'm actually just going to stipple this DIY Sandy Blonde with my R20 paintbrush, and I'm going to get some really great base color texture. I actually don't even know exactly where I'm going with this piece, but I know that I want to start here. Sometimes you just got to get going, and while it's drying, you can do some research and come up with an idea. Now that my base layer of faded burlap is dry, I'm going to use Cottage Color and Haint Blue, as well as DIY Paint in White Swan to stipple on some layers, but not full coverage. We're just going to want to add a little extra detail before we put on our final coat. Same like before, stipple up and down and just do a pattern that looks relatively random. The final paint color that I'm going to be using is Navy Blues by Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. You do 1 part warm water to 1 part milk paint and mix it up. you can use a fork or a whisk, but the best way to use it is in a plastic cup with an immersion blender. I picked mine up at the thrift store for pretty inexpensive. Make sure that you mix up only what you're going to use and add water slowly, because you can always add more water, but you can't take it out. I'm just gonna brush one single coat of this navy blues. It's okay if the coverage isn't 100% because I'm gonna come back and distress it, but because this color is really dark, we're going to get really great coverage. Just want to show you some up close of the good crackle that we got. I didn't do anything. I didn't add extra bond. I didn't heat gun it. I haven't wet distressed it. I just let it dry, and that's the crackle we got. I'm going to distress it with the sander and 220 sandpaper, then a little bit of wet distress, and we'll see if we can get some more crackle and chips. I'm just using a damp rag to take off the dust and also wet distress. This can cause the paint to chip. It can cause it to crack more, so just know when you get the water out, you're risking it.
It is time to get this piece waxed. We're going with DIY clear wax, and I'm just gonna put this on pretty liberally, and we like to swirl it. It goes on super smooth. This wax is very creamy, and then after the swirl, I like to even it out. But first, I'm gonna get a bunch of it on there. This wax has been sitting on here probably about 20 minutes. It's still a little pasty. I can still swirl it here, but a lot has absorbed in, and I want to get rid of all those swirl marks. So I'm going to buff it down, give it a little bit of a sheen, and then we'll be done. We can let it sit for another 24 hours and buff it again after that. And you can buff it to like a high gloss finish if you want. Just depends on how many layers of wax you put on and how much you want to buff it. It's gonna have some highs and lows in the wax as it cures. It can take up to 30 days for wax to fully cure. You remember, it's a wax. So don't be alarmed if you've got some splotchiness. If after 30 days you still have a lot of splotchiness, that's typically because you have a lot more wax in one area than another, and you need to go back and probably re-wax and then buff again.
It's like attacking me. Okay. We're super excited to get back to DIY painting videos. I was really inspired by a lot of the original chippy layered paint finishes that we saw while we were in Europe. If you have any questions, please comment below. Visit JamiRayVintage.com for the paint and products used today.
If you need any more tips or tricks that come up when you're waxing, just ask. We've done a ton of waxing for a lot of years now, and I've pretty much seen it all. Maybe yours will be the thing I haven't seen, but comment below if you've had issues.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more
DIY.